tintype photo hiding among your collection? Not really sure? In this video, I'll be sharing with you the history and characteristics of the tintype photograph. Hey there, if we haven't met before, I am Lisa with Are You My Cousin? And this YouTube channel is designed to help you find your ancestors, grow your family tree, and not be overwhelmed in the process. So if it sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. Today's video is sponsored by Related Faces. They are a new on the scene genealogy tool designed to help you identify your ancestors in those old family photographs. Now, I'm still on a mission to get all of my old family photographs identified, and I'm excited by Related Faces' use of artificial intelligence, or AI, to help put names to some of those faces. Simply upload a photo to the Related Faces system and add in any details that you might know. And, well, if you don't know a lot of details, like me, that's okay too. Sit back and wait as the faces in your photograph are compared with every other photograph in the database, using their proprietary technology, including photographs from the United States Library of Congress. Be sure and check it out for yourself. I'll have the link in the description below. All right, so let's talk about tintypes. I know if you've watched some of my previous videos, I talk a lot about old family photographs, and I tend to talk a lot more about cabinet cards and some of the other types of photographs, but we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about the tintype. It's a unique photograph that is out there and was very popular. If you watch any of my previous family photo videos, you know that I talk a love old. Now, if you followed me for any length of time, you know that I absolutely love and adore old family photographs. I have a large collection. I'm very thankful for it, but I really haven't talked a lot about tintype photo here on the YouTube channel. In fact, among all of my family photos, I only have one tintype that I have in there, and I'm still working to identify. I'm very, very close, and I think I am about 90% sure who is in that photograph, but I'm not completely sure. But I do have a tintype, and it definitely differs from the other photographs in my collection. So we're going to learn all about the tintype today. Now, a tintype is also known as a ferrotype. So if you see that particular word in writing or in a book, you know that you are talking about a tintype. And a tintype was made by creating a direct positive image on a thin sheet of metal, and typically that would have been iron. Now, these were wildly popular in the 1850s through the early 1900s, with really their peak popularity being during the Civil War time. They were relatively inexpensive and they were durable, which really made them more accessible to a wider range of people. They provided an affordable and accessible means for capturing those portraits, documenting individuals, families, and events. Now, their popularity soared during the Civil War time period because soldiers heading off to battle would want to preserve their likenesses for their loved ones back home. And tintypes photographers would actually set up makeshift studios near military camps, offering the soldiers a chance to have their portraits taken before deployment. Now, beyond their role in wartime photography, tintypes really became a staple of everyday life, documenting many such things as weddings, graduations, family gatherings. So their affordability made them more accessible to the general public. And they were no longer just for the wealthy, but were also some of the working class were able to afford them as well. So let's think about this. Do you have a tintype in your collection? Now, one of the features when it comes to telling if you have a tintype in your collection is, well, quite frankly, the way it looks. It's going to have a smooth surface, but it's also going to have a bit of a metallic sheen to it. So oftentimes you will see what looks to be a metallic sheen to it. So when you're looking at a suspected tintype, kind of look for that very characteristic metallic type of luster to it. Another clue for that tintype is really the weight and the thickness of the photograph. Now, you can't really tell in this flat light, but this is a tintype, as I mentioned earlier. It is heavier, it is sturdier than those paper-based photographs because it is of that metal. You'll notice that it feels more solid and slightly heavier than you might have thought when you went to pick up the particular photograph. Now, the other thing to do when you're really trying to evaluate that tintype is, and decide is it a tintype or not, is really pay attention to this image itself. Tintypes often had a unique tonal range and contrast, so you're going to see a lot of really rich blacks, but also some pretty deep shadows as well. So you'll notice that looks a little bit different here. Now, many tintypes show definitely some deterioration, some discoloration over time, and while sometimes that can add to the vintage charm, it does tend to tell you a little bit more about that photograph. We notice in this tintype that I have, and it is the only one that I have, it actually has little scratches on it. You can kind of see that reflected up through here. If you were able to hold this particular tintype in your hand, you would notice that it had a lot of minor scratches throughout the photograph, more than what you can actually just see here on the screen as well. But that is indicative of that tintype. Oftentimes these were carried around because they were more affordable. They might have been carried, in its protective sleeve if the sleeve hadn't been lost, and maybe so we start to see a little more wear and tear on these photographs that would have been perhaps carried in someone's pocket or kept close on someone's person. Now, another thing to look when it's looking at those tintypes is really to look at the clothing and hairstyles. So again, dating clothing and hairstyles for men and women can also help you if you're not sure. Some tintypes were actually in small cases, maybe making you think that perhaps it was a daguerreotype or an ambrotype, but those photographs were actually much earlier. And so by evaluating clothing and the time period for clothing and hairstyles, you might identify that that photograph would have actually been taken well after the time that a daguerreotype or ambrotype was being created. So that would be your clue that it would have been a tintype in a case as well. Now, if you have a tintype in your family photo collection, be sure and hit that like button. Even if you suspect you do, go ahead and let me know. Now, tintypes, like all old photographs, tend to be very susceptible to damage, so we must take very good care of them to prevent any further deterioration that might have already occurred. First off, it's really important that as we're handling an old tintype that we have clean hands. So just make sure you have washed and thoroughly dried your hands to make sure you have removed any excess oils or soil that could then transfer to the photograph. Now, when it comes to storing a tintype, you want to make sure you store that tintype, like any old family photograph, in a cool and dry environment. Keep them away from direct sunlight. And of course, avoid storing them in, say, an attic or a basement or any part of your home that could be susceptible to extreme temperature changes. Additionally, go ahead and make sure you're storing them in acid-free archival sleeves if possible. If you choose to actually display your tintype, make sure that you have it behind a UV protected type of glass. That way you can shield it from the sunlight and reduce the risk of deterioration. But I do recommend, if you really want to display that tintype, to check with a professional, someone who is used to handling and displaying old family photos. We want to make sure that we protect your precious images. And of course, if your tintype or any other old family photograph has already experienced damage or deterioration, you might want to consult a professional conservator or archivist to see what they might suggest to either repair or prevent further damage to that family photograph. Definitely avoid the DIY type of repair on that old family photo because you don't want to risk damaging that photograph further. Now, if you would like to learn more about old family photographs, check out my Cracking the Family Photo Code training you'll find listed in the description below.